Welcome everybody. My thanks today to Rob Hubbard from LAS and Nita and hopefully Sarah, who are going to join him on this webinar. It's very timely because Learning Technologies, I think yesterday, opened up applications for the 2020 Learning Technology Awards. Today what we're going to hear about is how you get to win gold. So I will come back at the end and say a few more things about the kind of events that the eLN is offering at the moment. But right now I'm going to mute and turn off my video and hand over to you, Rob. Thanks very much.
Wonderful, thanks Joan. And it's great to see so many of you here today as well. So the structure that we've got, there's two projects that we'll be sharing with you. So the first one with the wonderful Netamir from Sodexo is called Digital Passports, Digital Transformation Project. And the structure will be kind of 20 minutes around about that of us presenting the project to you, and then we've got 10 minutes for questions. But do feel free, as questions occur to you, pop them in the chat, and then Netta and I can refer back to them afterwards. And then hopefully at 1:30 or thereabouts, we'll have Sarah from the BBC joining us as well to talk about our Becoming Blended project. I'm all set up to cover that as well. Sarah will be kind of chipping in. It'll be the same structure again, that 20 minutes plus 10. So just before we dive into the presentations proper, a little bit about LAS. So we tend to operate in this space here between learning and capability building, change enablement, so very often our projects are part of a bigger change, and communication engagement as well. So there's very often these three elements are there present in our project. That's not to say that we LAS are responsible for all of these. Generally we sit more in the kind of learning capability area, but we can kind of input into these areas as well. In terms of the actual stuff that we do, I mean, really to flag up to you, we're doing a load of free stuff at the moment because we do anyway. We like to help. We like to help the industry and places like the eLearning Network and others. But we've kind of turned up even more the free help and support that we're providing. So that's available if people want to access it. And then the other kinds of things we do around providing consultancy and advice and building things, so content, but also technical builds as well. So we work with some very nice, well-known organisations, which is great. We're also increasingly working with smaller organisations and just helping them kind of get their heads around this wonderful, weird world of digital learning that we inhabit. And if you do want to get in contact, there's my contact details there. So there will be a great deal less speaking from me now as I just switch over and Netta will begin sharing with you about the Digital Passport project, digital transformation. So I'm just going to go into presenter mode now. And Netta, over to you.
Thank you, Rob. So hi everyone. I'm Netta. I have to tell you that I'm not an L&D expert. This was my first L&D project. I'm coming from a marketing background, and my mission in Sodexo, so I'm sitting in the group, Rob, can you just move to next slide? And just a couple of words on Sodexo so you will understand our challenges, is that we are quite a big company. We have 460,000 employees in 72 countries. We are calling ourselves a low-tech company because our main services are providing food and facility management. So the services that we are providing are mainly using human to service. In the last, I would say, more like 5 years, we understood that we'll have to change the way that we are doing business. So we created huge digital transformation in our business. And my role in the digital team is to what I'm calling the human part. So how can we accelerate the digital transformation of Sodexo, but from the human perspective? And this training was part of the whole ecosystem of what we built to create this human transformation. Rob, if you can go one more. So just to give you the context, we were working on, I would say, 3 main domains. The first one is about engagement, how we can engage our whole community of employees to share more about what they're doing around digital, how we can learn from each other. And for this one, we have a very strong community. We are about education, so how we can provide the right information, the right knowledge to our employees to support them with the digital transformation. And the third part is the training part, which we, our main program is the Digital Passport, which is about creating the right mindset, but also going deep dive into specific skills that our communities need. We have 3 objectives for this program, and this program is still ongoing. So we launched it about a year ago, and as this organization is so huge, we are doing the deployment step by step. The first objective was to increase the awareness and the sense of urgency for this digital transformation. The second was to onboard Sodexo employees in the digital transformation journey and to make them actors. And the third one is really to prepare them with the right skills to provide the work differently. So the way we built it was in 3 different universes. The first universe is more the high level universe. So the population for this one was the widest, and it's about the mindset. So here you get the essence and I would say the reason why we need digital transformation in 5 hours, which divides to small bites of content. And this one is like easy to consume. It's very interactive. You will see it's fun. Then Universe 2 is much more deep dive, and it's for specific populations in Sodexo. It's for HR, sales, IT, marketing, strategy, and comms. And here we are going deep dive into their skills. So which skills do they need to, I would say, bring our business to the next phase? The third universe is even more narrow, which we call the transformakers. These are people that are selected inside Sodexo from the business, and these one are kind of our champions. So they are going through Universe 1 and 2, and then after that, in Universe 3, they get, I would say, the next phase, which is working on soft capabilities, change management, and much more.
So in terms of the methodology of how we undertook this project, I mean, the first thing that we did before we began working together was to make sure that we were a good fit. So both kind of culturally in terms of our values, and to see if we were going to likely be a strong team, and that certainly seemed the case. The next thing that we needed to do was the space theme, which Sodexo were very keen to use. Obviously a very strong distinctive theme, and given the audience, you know, some of the audience were pretty senior people, we wanted to sense check that this was the right approach to take. So we did a piece of user research. We mocked up some different treatments, and we got feedback from I think it was over 50 people, wasn't it, Netta, in a survey, as well as in like small focus groups and one-to-ones as well. And they did come back and say emphatically, yes, it is this kind of highly stylized space theme that we like. There was a need to get a version of Digital Passport out there really quickly. So in parallel with building the actual portal itself and the content, we produced what we called Plan B. So Plan B was creating some pages which looked quite similar to the final portal, but we deployed them as custom HTML within the learning management system. So it meant that we had a parallel track going on. We could get stuff out there really quickly so that a need was met. but also importantly, it allowed us to gather feedback that we could feed into the parent project, the main project. So that was useful. We were, and I can't stress this enough, and this is something that you'll see with BBC, that we really do work best in partnership with people rather than the traditional supplier and customer relationship. And really we have been, and we are, with Sodexo, one team working together on this. And a huge amount of focus from our team, of course, but also the Sodexo guys. We hugely focused on delivering this project, which made such a big difference. As Netta mentioned, we got Universe 1 out first of all, which was the kind of generic digital transformation material. And then we worked on Universe 2, and that's where we get into more specific skills for different functions in the business. We'll show you more of these a little bit later. And then in terms of the design and development, so what we actually built, well, we built a gamified portal. So it's a website, a custom built website. It's responsive, so it works cross-device, multi-language, and designed so that Sodexo create the language versions of it, create the instances. You visit planets, you access content, and you complete missions, which are collections of content and also activities that you can do. You do earn points as you work through. The levels that you progress through are from a new recruit up to an admiral, and you get an increasingly kind of impressive spaceship as you progress, which then enables you in Universe 2. That's the more kind of deep space stuff that you do, where you're going to the areas for your specific function. You of course get badges for kind of collections of things, and then also we built in quite a nice way of an extra step in the process for rating and favoriting content, which we'll show you shortly, which we think adds a bit more value there. So I think, fingers crossed, Netta, do you want me to talk through the video for this?
Go for it.
Okay. So there's no audio on the video, just me talking, but this will give you a sense of digital passport. So this is actually what the portal looks like. So on the left here, we have Universe 1. On the right is Universe 2, which is currently locked until that's completed. And we have a pathway of planets, and a planet is just a collection of content that you can access. Most of the content here is produced using the Elucid app author tool and hosted there. But also Digital Passport integrates with Cornerstone On Demand, which is the main learning management system that Sodexo use. So we integrate with Cornerstone On Demand for data and Elucid app for content. So essentially we want people to access the material. So this is an example of a piece of Elucid app content. It was designed to be stylized and fit with the style of the whole the portal. Some amazing videos. So this is Eloy, who's the Group Chief Data Officer. He's a brilliant guy. Yeah, so they're pretty short, pretty concise piece of content, but there were also activities for people to undertake as well. So the idea is they'd move through, they'd visit these different planets. It's a learning pathway, and then this is the rating bit here. So this is where we say, how relevant was it to you? If it's not relevant, then we don't ask you to rate it. We only ask you to rate it if it is relevant, and if you take that step to say yes, I'll rate it, that's when you can see how other people have rated it as well. So what we're aiming for there is an objective measure rather than shaped by others. So that was the panel where you see your points badges, your rank, and the ships that you've got as well. And then at the bottom, that's the missions that you can undertake too. So there's more to it than that, but in the time that we've got, that hopefully gives a good sense of it. So back to you, Netta, I think.
So in Universe 2, what we decided to do is to have more of a blend learning experience, because as we are not experts in, for an example, writing marketing training, there are many experts in the market, and it's it's already made content, which is it was not the case for the first universe. So the first universe, we created all the content ourselves because it was very important to link it very closely to what Sodexo is doing. In the second universe, it's more, I would say, generic skills that every marketeer or salesperson or HR person needs to have. So what we did is we linked with the LinkedIn, which provided us the content. And for each function, we have, I would say, we created our own content for the introduction. And then after that, you go through a learning path that we curated from LinkedIn content. Rob, do you want to say a few words about the growth mission?
Yeah, so this is Universe 2, and this is Universe 1 is great and it gives people a grounding, but essentially we're getting people to go through content. We're encouraging them to go through material that will help raise their level of understanding to a certain level. Universe 2 is where we're getting them to put this learning into practice, and this is where I'm kind of even more enthusiastic about the project. So we've got 4 different areas, business functions for people to visit. What we've done here is we've built in part of an innovation process so that you take what you've learned in Universe 1, you add some function-specific learning in Universe 2, but then you apply that learning to the actual real challenges that your function has. So you're then applying that using an innovation process. And what you can see here, this sort of muddy rock on the right-hand corner, this is your growth mission. This is where you apply that innovation process. And as you work through that process and you do some research and you investigate the problem or opportunity, generate possible solutions to it. As you work through that, this kind of growth mission planet becomes increasingly green and then populated and all of this stuff gets nice infrastructure and that kind of thing. And at the end of this process come potentially workable solutions to the real challenges that the business faces. So the innovation team keep a close eye on the outputs of these, and the ones that they look at and they think actually could be a genuine solution, they pilot. So, we love designing things like this where, yes, it's a learning experience for people and it brings value to the organisation in those ways, but also it helps in other ways. It helps solve problems or generate ideas or link people together that wouldn't have worked together before. And just quickly on the innovation, that was one of the things they asked about in this submission is, how it wasn't the innovation award that we won, but why is this innovative? So, it's very strongly themed, strongly gamified portal that we built. So that's fairly innovative. The multi-language side of things we thought was pretty cool. So we produced the English version of it. Sodexo, completely without our input whatsoever, can create all of the different language versions of it as well. No need to come back to us. They're also able to edit quite a lot of the content. So there are some, where you've got, stuff in graphics, for example, those are changes that we might need to make on the portal. But in terms of the written content, that's all very much editable by Sodexo. It's got a dual learning management system integration, so Elucidate for content and Cornerstone on Demand for data. And as I've just mentioned, that adding the innovation process to it, so it generates real value for the business. That's probably my favourite thing of the project. We also built in quite a lot of data analytics and reporting into the portal, which we've included a couple of screenshots there. We thought it would be, that's a kind of 6th point, we thought it'd be weird to have a hand with 6 fingers, so we put pictures in instead. So Netta.
Yes, so as I said in the beginning, we have, I would say, long-term deployment strategy. I can say that now COVID-19 a little bit disrupted this plan, but we are, let's say, kind of keeping our promise. And today, if you can move to the next slide, it's not the KPIs yet. But what we are doing in each country that we are launching the digital passport, we are doing a little bit of a celebration to raise the awareness. So before it was our HQ, now it's Brazil. And the next one, I think, will be China. Mm-hmm. So each country, the L&D team together with the communication team and digital team, if we have there, they are creating a very nice launch, and there is a lot of buy-in from the leaders, and we have, I would say, great traction in the places that we are launching the program. And here are the KPIs. So for Universe 1, we have today almost 10,000 employees on board. And for Universe 2, which is, again, it's for a very specific population in Sodexo, we have 1,714. In terms of numbers of modules completion, you can see, and in hours of learning, you can see that it's massive, and it's growing all the time. We can also see, Robin, the next slide, the qualitative KPIs, which are extremely good. We are asking at the end of Universe 1 to give us feedback on the learning. And we can see that people think that first, the NPS it's super high. People would like to recommend the digital passport to their peers. And also the ones that I like the most is how big the positive impact on their work. And you can see that it's almost 100% positive.
And it's wonderful to see that, particularly in an organisation where a lot of the population wouldn't think that digital was that relevant to their jobs. You know, where they're doing physical jobs and they're interacting with people, and technology would seem perhaps less of an important thing to them. So it's wonderful to see that. And then I think this is a wonderful picture. This is the level of kind of stakeholder buy-in. Do you want to just explain who these two people are, Netta?
Yes. So on the left we have Denis Machuel. He is the CEO of the company. And on the right, we have Belén Moscoso de Prado, our Chief Digital Innovation Officer of the company. So both of them were the sponsors from the beginning for this project. This is our winning picture.
So yeah, they're pretty, having that level of stakeholder buy-in is pretty cool. So we've got a few minutes for questions here. So let's have a look. In the chat, if we've got any questions there. So John, does this view work on a smartphone? Yeah, it's fully responsive, so works cross-device. What tool tech did you use for the portal? From Jason. Custom build, so it's a full custom build. We used sort of standard LAMP stack technologies to build that, Jason. Rohit, interesting to know how the graphic universe UI was made responsive. Impressive. Yeah, so yeah, just working out the different layouts for different screen widths and orientations, really, and getting it to work. I mean, it was, of course, with something that visual, pretty challenging to do, but yeah, we got there in the end. I mean, also generally with larger volumes of learning, people would tend to work on larger screens, but it does work on smaller as well. So let me just see if there's any more questions. Limits to landscape view. Rohit, I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. Do you know, Netta, does it have to stay in landscape?
Yes, in smartphone, yes.
Yeah, okay. So Annie there, how long did this take to develop to launch? So Plan B, we did that pretty quickly, didn't we, Netta? Can you remember how?
Yeah, I think it was 7 months, the prototype, from really the beginning of the discussions.
Oh, from the start of the discussion. Okay, yes. Yeah. So right from the very start of starting to think about should we work together to the first delivery, the actual contract signed to getting Plan B out was quite a lot less than that, though, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
The main portal, I think that was probably 9 months, 10 months, something like that. Yeah. And then they used Universe 1 for a while, and then we worked on Universe 2. So do you do the graphic design in-house? So there was the agency that you used?
Yes. We asked Hubbard to do the graphic design.
Yeah, so we work with them quite often. When we're working on these sort of scalar projects, there's other people that are inputting in. So that's, sometimes it's other agencies, sometimes it's internal teams, as you see with well, with the BBC, we're really comfortable working that way. It's whatever fits best. And it made sense for Havas because the space theme, they worked on the branding for that, and a whole load of, those other projects that you saw with all the different logos, they'd worked on the space themed branding for all of those. So kind of made sense for them to do that design work. What's your plan when it comes to updates? How regularly you refresh and retain for individuals? So you're pretty good with those. There's been some regular updates, Netta?
Yes, so we have a person who is dedicated to this program and to update the content, and she's regularly updating if we have, for example, new business cases, or we change a little bit the strategy on a specific topic. She's updating it quite quickly.
Yeah, so they don't need to come back to us to make
Yes.
make the majority of those updates. How did you go about curating the LinkedIn learning content? Isn't that a massive job? You guys took that on, didn't you?
It was. It was a massive job. It was not easy at all. We had a network of SMEs to create the content for Universe 1, and we asked them to help us to curate the content for Universe 2 as well. So it was, I would say, we asked for about 8 people to help us to curate the content from LinkedIn.
So thanks, John. Thanks for being here. Cheerio. So Ed McLean talked about people applying learning through an innovation process in the Brown Planet. How did that work? Yeah, so it was really fascinating working with Sodexo's innovation team. So obviously an organisation of that big, you've got pretty high caliber people, working at that level. And what was fascinating was how similar the innovation process was just to our research and design and development process that we use anyway. So that was really a really sort of comfortable way of working. We had a little bit of back and forth. We wanted to put more of the innovation process in than they wanted to go into something which they viewed as a learning tool. We were very keen that it was generating this business value as well. So we kind of settled in the middle. But essentially it's you go through a user toolkit essentially where you're thinking about who are the audience, how are they affected. You're doing some audience research as well. You can do this individually or in teams. You're encouraged to do it in groups. You're then understanding the project constraints. You're generating possible solutions, and you are documenting them in a way to kind of share them so that people can get an idea of your concept. So that was where we went. So Sharon, there, is it seen as a program for people to do and tick off, or something that people will be dipping into throughout their career? One for you, Netta.
Well, it's a good question. I'm not sure that if you finished Universe 1, you will come back to it quite often, because I don't think that we are reinventing the content again and again. And because our objective is to cover, let's say, the whole, I would say, white collar of our population. It's about 80,000 people. So we still have a long journey to go. So for me, it will be more getting everyone on it for the first time, finish Universe 1 at least, then go back again to do the training again.
And I think just in the interest of time, I'm seeing there's a couple more questions coming through, but I think we're going to have to switch on to the BBC one, just so that we can take you through that. But yeah, thanks so much, Netta, for coming along. And although right at the start Netta said I'm not an L&D person, and I know that's not technically your role, but I would say, Netta, that you are one of the best L&D people. Honestly, I'm not just saying this, but you are one of the best L&D people that we've worked with. And I think it is because of your marketing background, your digital background, your focus on behaviours, and not having a lot of the baggage that perhaps some other people in learning and development have. So although you say that, you are brilliant at it. So
Thank you, Rob.
But I'm afraid we have to let Netta go now. She's got a bit of a hectic day today. But so thanks so much for joining us. And
thank you, Rob. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Great. So we're just going to switch now to the BBC one, and we have wonderful Sarah here as well. Hey Sarah, how are you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
I thought you were going to say, talking of baggage, we've got Sarah here. Nice intro.
So how would you like to do this? How I've prepped this to kind of talk through it. Do you want me to go through it and you can just correct me and heckle me? Or would you like to do it more of a kind of double header? What would you like to do?
No, you crack on, Rob, and I'll heckle away.
Okay, I thought you might choose that one. Oh, cool. So the other key person who couldn't make it here today, and I must send her a text, is Jenny, because it's Jenny's birthday today. So there's absolutely, as wonderful as it is presenting something like this, I think it's far more important to sit in your back garden and hopefully drink, well, it's past the Yardam, isn't it? Perhaps a gin and tonic in the sunshine instead. So Jenny and Sarah were our main two stakeholders on this project. So it's called Becoming Blended. And in terms of the background context, I mean, I'm sure you're all very aware that there's a lot more competition for the BBC than there ever has been before. So there is an increased need to be more kind of agile internally, to be able to respond more quickly, to be able to provide training more flexibly. And of course that means adopting digital ways of teaching and learning. And this was a bit of a challenge, something that the BBC have been working towards for a number of years, and trying to address this in different ways. And I think it's fair to say, Sarah, it hadn't quite taken, really.
Yeah, I think the whole attempts before had been that digital was something that happened over there and that training happened over there. It was very separate kind of setup, and although we had an internet and we had content, we had a website with content on it that staff could access, it wasn't aligned necessarily with the content and that the trainers were delivering in their face-to-face sessions. And it's also worth just saying about the context that our trainers were very traditional. Their whole learning style was extremely classroom driven, and they were very safe and felt very safe and very confident in the way that they were doing that. But they were very beholden to it as well. So they thought that the digital stuff was something that happened that another team did on the other side of the office that they didn't really have to engage with.
So a bit of a challenge. So in terms of the overall objective, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you will be familiar with this kind of transformation. So, often it's called, transform into a learning culture. It's that kind of thing. So having your trainers and your learning team being more consultants to the organisation rather than just order takers and just, do you want fries with that course kind of approach, to be much more human-centred about the approach to learning design, to be much more comfortable being fully blended and not doing more kind of advanced things in blends rather than the sort of sometimes quite basic blends that people put together, where it's basically like, oh, here's some stuff to do before the workshop that nobody's really going to do. Here's the workshop's amazing, isn't it? It's really cool. And then here's some stuff afterwards that you really might want to look at. Instead, it's kind of breaking it apart a lot more than that, thinking on a different level about how to put that blend together. So developing more learning resources, not just falling on to, going back to the default of it needs to be a course, whether that's digital or whether that's classroom, and looking more at ways to support people at the point of need. Moving a bit more away from traditional classroom learning, but certainly at the same time, avoiding the sheep dip, e-learning modules that last forever. I mean, I must say this as, we've worked with lots of different customers. The BBC were by no means bad at e-learning or at blended learning. Already, you were kind of a good way developed in your thinking, but the appetite was really to push it further. So although Sarah will say, oh, very traditional, not up on that, well, compared to everybody else, you're kind of, you're a step above already, but it really was taking it to that next level.
Yeah, I think our challenge was about making sure that we'd got the trainers on board. Although we've got, like I say, some digital content being created, it was about the journey for us was transforming our trainers, and then beyond the trainers, it was about transforming the business. So this whole program was about changing the mindset of our training team and about them understanding what blended was and how that they could themselves deliver it without diminishing their role.
Yeah, being a catalyst, basically. This project was a catalyst, wasn't it? But so why would we do this project as a blended project? Well, the message should be the medium, you know, it should be the mechanism. So what better way to teach people about blended learning than to immerse them in a blend which really does embody what we're trying to teach them. The challenge being, I don't know how much we talk about timescales in this, but the timescales were interesting. We've fortunately been working with the BBC for a good while before then, but when we got the green light for this project, it was 5 weeks before the start of the programme. And as we get into that, so that's like, right, that's quite interesting. As we get into the project and the scale of it that you'll see, that could have been a lot more challenging than it turned out to be. So I'll talk through the video because I've worked out what's all in place here, Sarah. So this will it's a little video. Again, there's no audio. I'll talk you through it, but this will take you through some of the ingredients that went into this blend that we produced pretty rapidly. So it included a bunch of animations that we did, not lots and lots, just a few because of the timescales that we had. There were weekly challenges that people could undertake. So some were digital, some were offline challenges, so they could do those. We made good use of documents, so particularly things like checklists were really handy for lots of the audience on things. We of course used curated content, so where there was already great stuff, we reused that, but did that selectively. We did some really nice infographics, which worked well. So again, another form of digital that can be produced quickly. We built some interaction. So this is the thing that perhaps is most e-learning-y about it, but there weren't many of these. There were some of them were like click to reveal interactions like that. Others were more reflective. We did some nice podcasts, so that was great fun to do. So we recorded those and some lovely videos. So ones that the BBC produced, ones that we did as well on a green screen. And then we had virtual classrooms each week, which were highly interactive and really held it together. And then we managed to get quite a lot of social engagement in Yammer, which was potentially, we thought was going to be a big challenge, but we had quite a lot of success there. And it was all accessed from a microsite, and the microsite was built in Gomo. So the Gomo e-learning author tool, we used that as a way to create a website, basically, that we could then release each week's worth of material on. So it's the BBC's version of Gomo that we had logins to, so everything was being done on their tech. So in terms of the structure of it, there ended up being 3 seasons. So season 1, that was the focus for LAS, and that was basically teaching the trainers about our next generation blended learning approach, helping them think about how to apply that. Season 2, do you want to talk about that briefly, Sarah?
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, I think just going back to the point around it being blended, it was really important for us that that the trainers were immersed in what an actual blended learn was. So having a variety of tools and places that they could source content was really vital as part of the kind of learning process, because we wanted them to see what another learner, one of their learners, I guess, would experience, and understand that there were many ways of getting content, and also kind of reinforcing those messages around repeat and refer, and understanding what we were keeping for the webinar sessions, and also what we were keeping for them to be able to go and just look up on a guide. It's also worth saying, I think, that we had, there's a lot of cynicism in the training team around about blended learning and about how good it was, and about it and there were lots of concern about it, thinking that it was going to diminish the role of the trainers, and actually that they weren't going to be valued, and that they wouldn't be that they wouldn't be able to deliver their face-to-face training. And I guess the context around that is that we were also going through a restructure at the time. So there was lots of fear, I guess, amongst the team that this was going to basically take their job away. So that's the kind of culture that we were working with. And I guess how we decided to head it up was that Jenny, who is a learning designer, and she heads up that team, so she's a convert, but I was the other kind of partner, I guess, kind of running this program, and it was important that it was me because I was quite cynical about it all as well, and I certainly wasn't a convert and had really no experience of kind of digital delivery, and so I was there to kind of represent the trainer's voice and ask the questions and kind of make those challenging remarks, I guess, to make sure that their voice was being represented, which is why when we was structuring it, that we broke it down into the 3 seasons by saying 1 was the theory, which is obviously the bit that Rob and LAS helped us with, the kind of working out actually what is all this blended learning about, what is the theory behind it. Then the second season we moved into was, okay, so that's the theory. How do we now actually apply that? How do we use tools? How do we, what are the things that we need to know? How do we get to even do this? Because it's all very well saying, yes, we need to do this. How do the trainers actually go about doing it? That session or season was run by our learning design team. So we highlighted obviously various tools through that season. And then the third season we moved on to was that obviously some trainers were ahead of the curve, some were kind of on the curve, some of them were certainly behind it. The ones that were ahead, what we chose to do in that third season was to highlight their good work. And so we had some trainers who were doing, had got their heads completely around it and were starting to deliver stuff in a kind of blended way. We got them coming and delivering webinar sessions, or certainly sort of interviewed them. And we also brought in people from outside, people that we've come across at any of the conferences that we've attended, or through any of our kind of networks, or had won awards, obviously at various award ceremonies. And we kind of invited them in to showcase their best wares as well. So that was, everybody from, I think we had John Lewis, we had Hilty, we had, I can't remember the others, had so many, I don't know. Anyway, so it was, so from that point of view, LV was another one. So we had loads of people coming in and we conducted those as an interview, and it was really interesting hearing other people that were going through the same journey and understanding or learning from them about what, that actually we're all in the same boat. So that kind of commonality really, really helped our trainers.
So I use a Mac. Microsoft just decided to update PowerPoint. Isn't that exciting? What fantastic timing.
Oh, okay.
So let's see if I can open it up at the moment.
There's a couple of questions if you wanted to. One question I had was that little video clip. Did you prepare that especially for the awards? Because I know that as a judge, it's often really helpful to have a little video clip to put your case across quickly.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did make that especially for the awards. The learning design team put it together.
Yeah, there's a nice video later on, possibly with some audio if that will work, which gives you the kind of user perspective as well, if we've time for that. We're not expecting you to read this, but this gives you a sense of the scope of the work that was undertaken. So at the top here, this is season 1. So this was LAS's bit that we got together. Season 2 here is at the bottom that Sarah mentioned, and season 3 is over here on the right with the external speakers that we mentioned too. So it's a pretty big undertaking, quite a lot to get done. I mean, a real key thing, and you can see just I think a key success factor here is having Sarah involved. So having the user, having a representative from the audience that you're trying to engage with, not just being consulted in the project, but helping run the project. And Jenny and Sarah, there's a huge amount going on, as everybody has in their working lives, but was so responsive. And again, as you saw with Sodexo, same thing with the BBC, very much worked as one team. And there were times where we had to compromise and we had to be light on our feet and think about different ways of doing things. And sometimes, development tasks would be, it would make more sense for the BBC to do them, and things would get passed back and forth, for better efficiency. But basically working together as a team, even within those really short timescales, meant that we could get a really good quality first week out. While that was being delivered, because the intellectual property for season 1, that's LAS thinking. So a lot of it wasn't stuff that we had documented, it's just our ways of working. So we were writing the content, we were getting that approved, we were designing the blend, we were then designing the digital assets for the blend, we were producing them, we were testing them, then we were deploying them, and then we were facilitating and tutoring it as well. So, it had a huge potential for being a massive car crash of a project. But because of the way that we were able to work together, the team, us and the BBC, I'm really glad to say that it wasn't. In fact, can you remember what your what that key phrase that you used, Sarah, to say about the project?
If you really want me to share that. Nobody's going to be offended by bad language, are they? Yes, just don't make it shit.
Yeah,
was classic kind of production language. I guess when we were commissioned to, my boss commissioned me and Jenny to run this. It was obviously really important for us that we had kind of key partners in the mix, as it were. So, which is obviously why and how Rob kind of came on board. And we imagined that the project was going to last for 12 weeks. Well, we're still running it. We're on about, I'm not even talking weeks now, we're on about month 15. So we are still conducting our webinars and still have our content going on the microsite. So it just completely took on a life of its own. And we're constantly evolving it as the need evolves.
It's had a lot of care and attention put into it, as you can see, but also ongoing. So, the weekly virtual classrooms, I think there was a slide earlier where it said 40 to 45 people attending the virtual classrooms. That 45 is the maximum number. That is the full population, I think, give or take 1 or 2 of the trainers for this. And the stats on attendance of the virtual classrooms were pretty steady at that all the way through, weren't they?
All the way through the year, they were kind of standard, sort of pretty steady at that kind of between, well, I'd probably say averaging about 40, sometimes a couple less, sometimes a couple more. And of course, since the whole COVID-19, we've had even more coming from wider area, other people asking to join from other teams. So I ran a session last week and I had 68 on the session.
Wow.
Yeah, and we've been that's been how it's been for about the last few weeks during the whole situation.
Yeah, that is brilliant. And these are old statistics. These are from when we presented for the awards. So, weeks, it's now over a year. I was recently invited back to do a virtual classroom on being blended, which I thought was lovely. And the trainers have really kind of got on board with blended, even back then before all of this. And I was talking to Jenny the other day, and she said it really, as tough as COVID is, in terms of the trainers and the way they're thinking and their ability to be agile in the way that they're training people, this is they were really well set up for it because of all the 3 seasons of becoming blended that they've been through.
Yeah, out completely. They've been able to sort of jump in straight away, really.
That was a lovely video of the trainers that went through it. But I think just in the interest of time for questions, it's kind of gone on and blossomed, and it sort of kicked off stuff in other parts of the organisation, hasn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, completely. And I guess, first of all, we've grown. Obviously, we've gone from becoming blended to now being blended because we think we are blended. And so it's now about how we enhance those skills. But obviously, the model that we used for becoming blended, we've been able to sort of use as an example of other blended programs that we've initiated across the BBC. Big program going on with sport, upskilling lots of their staff, and so that they can support younger audiences better. Big transformation of the social media offer that we have. News, lots of discussion going on around news. Some of that's clearly right now there's a slight pause button on some of that work. They are going to go through a big transformation, but clearly their agenda has changed quite considerably over the last few weeks. And again, English regions as well, being able to use Being Blended as an example of how, you know, when you're trying to persuade the business who think that online learning is some long-winded mandatory training course, that's their experience of it. So being able to kind of explain to them that actually this is what blended learning is, and from the example from the actual Becoming Blended program has been really helpful.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Sarah. And we've got a bit of time for questions. I see we've got a few in there. So Jason, are you able to share a link to the video you just showed us? I think not, unfortunately, Jason, because that was it's a kind of internally produced one for the BBC and for the award. So yeah, sorry about that. Joan, how many trainers? So yeah, I think 45 trainers. Is that right, Sarah? Is the total number?
The total number of yeah, it's around that number. There's obviously some kind of fluctuation. Like I say, we have had a bit of a restructure, but it's around that number. Do you mean across the whole of the team, presumably? Yeah.
Any more questions from anybody?
Anything to add, Rob and Sarah, about the actual awards process itself?
I mean, it's exactly as the judges and the awarding, you know, organisation says. Answer the criteria. You know, that really is it. If you read through the criteria and you can think of your project and say, yeah, an 8 out of 10 for that, 9 out of 10 for that, 7 out of 10 for that, then you got a good chance. If you're going through those criteria and it's like, oh, I think we're a 3, oh, I think we're a 2, oh, we don't have the impact data, then, you know, those are the ones where you're less likely to do well. I mean, of course, it totally depends who you're up against. But in our experience, it's, you know, the challenging projects are the really interesting ones, and also the ones with demonstrable impact, you know, that you've got that impact data, not just that people enjoyed it and said nice things about it, but actually what effect has it had on the business. Did
you do any pre testing or sort of benchmarking before you launched the new program?
We didn't really have time to, because it was literally 5 weeks from green light to first delivery. So you know, I think we did a dry run of the first virtual classroom, didn't we, Sarah? I think you, me, and Jenny.
Yeah, I think we did. I'm trying to scratch in my head now, trying to remember.
Yeah.
I think we might have tried that out, but otherwise it was just I kind of guess approached it in the way that we would approach putting on a TV show, really, and just kind of got all the wheels turning and pumped for the best. Did a bit of rehearsal and then kind of went for it, really. And the first session we ran, we were wondering what it was going to be like. We trailed it heavily as well to all the staff, and I think we had about 80 people turning up on the first one.
The comms and engagement were amazing.
Yeah, they were.
You and Jenny did were just absolutely awesome. The campaign that fitted around this was really good.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is we made it feel like it's a regular slot in people's diaries, so they know that that's what's going to happen every Friday. We try and record the sessions if people can't attend, obviously, we've recorded most of them, and they know that there's a microsite where she's a resource of material. So it's rather than it being a chore, it's not like another meeting. We make it very the tone of it as well is very conversational and very open. We've made a real effort for it to be very safe, I suppose. So, and I guess for the awards, it was about making sure that we conveyed all of that kind of approach and tone, and also the passion that we had for both delivering it, why we were doing it, and then demonstrated with passion, the impact it had had.